Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we have another video. This game is from the final day of the Blitz section of the SuperUnited Blitz tournament in Croatia. And this is Magnus Carlsen versus Jan Nepomniachtchi. So it's Carlsen with the white pieces, and he opens with the king's pawn opening e4. c5 the Sicilian defense from Nepo, and we have knight to c3, the closed variation. d6, d4, and c captures on d4. Queen captures on d4. And we have knight to c6. So now the point is this knight attacks the queen, so the queen moves back to d2. We have g6, and we have b3, so fianchettoing maybe. So we have f5 from Nepo, so he's challenging this e4 pawn. And we have bishop to b2, bishop to g7, and castles on the king side. Now we have queen to a5. This knight which is displayed is being currently double attacked. And we have knight to d5, so improving the position of the knight. We have captures, bishop captures on b2, king captures on b2, and king to f7. E captures on f5, bishop captures on f5, and bishop to c4. Knight to e5, bishop to e2, and knight to f6. So we have a trade of knights, knight captures on f6, king captures on f6, and f4 attacking this e5 knight, which retreats to d7. We have bishop to f3 going after the b7 pawn, and we have knight to c5. We have knight to e2. We have bishop to e4 asking for a trade. Bishop captures, knight captures, and we have rook to d4. Now we have knight to c5, knight to c3, and king to f7. Rook to e1, and we have rook to e8. So the rook moves to e8, and from here we have knight to d5, rook a to c8, so preventing any ideas of a fork. We have c4, we have h6 pushing forwards, rook to e3, so maybe some ideas of rook to h3, maybe going after the h7 or h6 or g6 pawn. We have a6, rook to h3, and we have king to g7. Rook to e3, king to f7, and we have g4. Knight to d7, f5, and knight to e5. a4 pushing forwards, and we have g captures on f5, g captures on f5, and we have rook to g8 going after this h2 pawn, whilst giving a check maybe. So we have rook to h4 defending this pawn, and we have b5. So we have a captures, c captures on b5, a captures on b5, and a takes on b5. We have rook to c5, and we have knight to c3, still defending this pawn. And we have rook to g2 with check, king to a3, rook to c8 with check, not check yet, but we have rook to c8, we have rook captures on h6, rook to a8 with check, knight to a4 defending the check, and we have rook to g4, rook to c3, and we have rook to a5, so now this pawn is being attacked. The pawn pushes forwards whilst being defended by the knight, and we have rook to b5, so Nepo's rook goes after the b6 pawn. We have rook to c7, so now if the pawn pushes forwards, it would be defended by the the rook, and we have a double attack now on this pawn. And from here we have rook to h3. So this wasn't actually the best move in the position. So going back, there was a big advantage with the move f6 from here. But Carlsen decided to go with the move rook to h3. And we have king to f6, rook to c3, so rook h to c3, and we have rook to h4, h3, and rook to f4. We have rook to e3, rook to f1, and this wasn't a good move in the position. So in the position from here, you could have continued with a move such as rook to d4, rook f to b4, or you could have played king to f7, but the move rook to f1 was a big mistake here. So now Carlsen could take advantage of this with knight to c3 attacking the rook, and when the rook moves to a5 to give check, king to b4 going after this, rook to a6, we have knight to d5. So that mistake, when the rook went to f1, this is allowing Carlsen to promote his b-file pawn. So we have king capture on f5, b7, rook to c6, b8, which is with a queen, and there's no way to stop this. There's going to be a checkmate within 10 moves. So it was in this position on move 50 that Nepo resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video.